Hello and welcome to another managerial special from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me, as always, is Mr. Daniel Cody. Today, we are talking about Reading. We've been waiting for this episode to record for a very long time. Paunovic has been let go after a 3-2 win at Preston. He knew that before the game. And in comes Paul Ince as interim manager. It was read the club statement from Reading. The Serbian was appointed manager of the Royals in late August 2020, and without fans in the stands to support him or his side, we sustained a push for promotion for much of his maiden campaign in the Championship, and only for our playoff hopes to fade in the final weeks of 2021. This season, somewhat understandably, has proven more difficult, having to help lead the club through strict transfer embargo restrictions and contract limitations, and injury crisis like never before seen at our club, and a global pandemic and the challenge of a 6-point deduction imposed by the EFL. For these reasons, the owner wanted to afford Paunovic time to turn around poor recent run of results that now sees us in the battle for second-tier survival. However, with nearly a third of the season still remaining and every point now vital in our bid to retain championship status, the decision has been mutually agreed to make a change. The chief executive, Mr. Pang, said, "I met in person with Pauno yesterday morning, and I would like to personally thank him for his commitment and dedication to our club during his time as first team manager, but also his professionalism throughout what has been undeniably challenging circumstances this season. Everyone at Reading Football Club would like to wish Paunovic the very best of luck for his future career. The board and I will now work diligently to identify the right candidate to take the club forward. This work will be done quickly, but without undue haste, as we fully appreciate the importance of our decision to appoint a new manager at this crucial stage of the campaign." Former England captain Paul Ince, father of Royals loanee Tom Ince, has been appointed to take charge of first team affairs on an interim basis alongside academy manager Michael Gilkes, while we embark on a thorough search for a permanent manager. The club will not make any more comments. So, Paunovic is gone. Probably the least surprising sacking we probably had all season.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, I will just want to say quickly, Paunovic's post-match press conference interview was very classy afterwards. I think he could have said a lot more than he did. He's been, as the statement rightly points out, hindered by a lot of off-the-pitch difficulties, which weren't of his own making. In the first season, he did an incredibly good job. For so long, we thought they were going to do the unthinkable and get in the top 6, despite having a relatively thin squad, a lot of young players. And don't forget, particularly defensively, which we're going to get onto because they've got the worst defensive record in the Championship, some of those young stars they had in that defence last year that have been sold on and not replaced because of the transfer embargo. We look at Omar Richards went to Bayern Munich. We're talking about the standard of player. Elise, more attacking player, has gone to the Premier League with Crystal Palace. You can't lose 2, 3, 4 top quality players and then try and replace them with piece together free agents on deadline days, as they have done for this season. I feel that he's been hamstrung a bit. The injury crisis has been nuts. We saw in January with the fullbacks going off to AFCON, they basically played an under-21 team in defence, and that's when their defensive record collapsed, quite frankly. I feel a bit for him. I've said it in a lot of the prediction shows, and I know it's not going to be popular with some Reading fans because they've wanted him out for a number of weeks now, but our job's to be balanced. And I feel that he's been made the scapegoat for a very difficult situation at the club. I think there's probably more than meets the eye off the pitch. But having said that, you can't excuse the defensive record. You can't excuse the run of not winning a game in virtually 3 months. But as we've said so often this season, Craig, what is it with sacking managers after a win?
Yeah, I think I don't know what his team talk would have been before that game, because obviously he knew it was gone. In my opinion, it should have been done middle of January. I know they had a transfer embargo, and obviously you had to lose Andy Carroll, but it just seems to be a total mess from start to finish. And there's some bits you can blame him on. I have to criticize the injury in front of that, because how do you get so many players injured? So you have to probably look at his training methods or something like that. The fitness coach, what are they doing to get these sort of injuries? But obviously his hands were tied under a transfer embargo. Obviously, you said that they had to lose players. But where does the but stop? Because we can blame him on this, but you can blame the club on the points deduction, as they said in the statement. They can blame on the transfer embargo. Where's the money gone? You can't really blame the pandemic as well.
No, because that's affected a number of clubs, and we've seen plenty of others. If you're looking in the middle of the league now, as a Reading fan, you're looking at clubs that are the size of Blackpool, the size of Luton, the size of, I mean, even looking at Coventry coming back through the leagues, you're looking at clubs that have managed to establish themselves in the Championship despite financial restrictions, not having fans, and crowds will be a significant portion more of their income. So I don't think it's fair for clubs to blame the pandemic. We mentioned this when the whole Derby saga was going on, when Mel Morris mentioned it. But while results haven't been good enough, I think we've said for a long time, most clubs are reflected on the pitch how they are off the pitch. Clubs that are very well run are very stable on the pitch and generally have fewer manager changes. Clubs that are run poorly or are living beyond their means have generally struggled this season. And I don't think you can put all of the blame on a manager and expect it to go away, because you get to a situation where you have 4, 5, 6 managers and nothing changes. And I know Reading fans have been very vocal about the boardroom. Similar situation with Birmingham down the bottom there. There's a few clubs in that position. I don't think that this interim appointment is going to do much to change that. My big question is, Craig, beyond everything with the Paul Ince appointment, one of the most surprising things I've seen all season, but secondly, forget the Tom Ince plays for them, which was mentioned there, which is suspicious enough. Paul Ince is an external person. He wasn't working at the club, as far as I know. So if you're looking for the right candidate for a manager, how have you identified Paul Ince as an interim manager without the words of his son? Because has he had interviews? And if so, if you think he's the right person to be an interim manager, surely he's the right person to be your manager. I don't understand how he's suddenly appointed as a temporary manager, but they're going and looking for the right candidate. If the interim is someone from outside the club with no prior history with them, I find that baffling. I know he's got Michael Gilkes alongside him, who's played nearly 400 games for the club, who's worked within the club, which seemed a lot more logical to me. Whether they have a pre-existing relationship, I don't know. But that's the thing I find most odd of that. Not just that Paunovic has gone. I think we knew that was going to happen for some time. We knew he was going to be the scapegoat, and results haven't been good enough. But the appointment for temporary, how it's come about, who it is, and the capacity it's in has baffled me. It genuinely has baffled me.
Well, you've taken about 4 questions out of my my notes there. No, obviously, yeah, Paul Ince is now interim charge. He hasn't had a job in football since 2014, and he spoke quite criticising Manchester United like every week on TalkSport or Sky Sports News about how he would do a better job than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. He has to get off running straight away, because those words, especially coming here from Manchester, like from the Manchester United fans, that's going to bite him straight away. So he has to get up and running. But he's been out of the game for 6-7 years. So I'm just as baffled as you are of disappointment. I hope it's not because of Tom Ince, and Tom Ince will have nothing to do with this. And I'm not. No, otherwise, not. Otherwise, Paul Ince has been taking charge of Luton for last season. And I just feel it was. Do you feel it was? He was there to watch the game. Forget Neil Lennon, because there was talks about Neil Lennon being watching the direct spot. He was there to watch his son play, and they've gone and asked him, can you take over the side for the interim? And he stubbornly said yes.
Well, I hope not, because that would be a huge lack of foresight from the board and worry. And look, we have to hope that in good faith, they've identified that he's a good candidate, that he only wants to take the role temporarily, and that's the agreement they've come to. But I can't see how he's been offered a temporary job while they look for a manager, rather than being offered an interim or manager's job, if they felt he was such a good candidate and it had happened that way. That's why I'm suspicious. You mentioned a great point, which is, if he's going to do better than take away this season, what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did at United, finishing top 4, Europa League finals, whatever else, then Reading fans are in for a treat. They're going to have a lovely time if they can match the form of a top 4 Premier League side. But I'm genuinely worried about this. The positives are that Paul Ince is taking over this side just as the first 11 is coming back to full fitness. The defenders are back from AFCON, the fullbacks. We've got Lucas João, best he's looked since coming back yesterday, was fantastic. John Swift, such a crucial cog of their attacking play. And Paul Ince, in his first 2 jobs of his managerial career, in difficult situations, was able to stiffen up defences. And that's something that he's going to desperately need to do here with Reading, having conceded 62 goals, more than anyone else. My worry is, Craig, the last 3 jobs, Blackburn, I know he went to MK Dons again, Notts County and Blackpool, he's had a worse win percent rate than Paunovic has at Reading in atrocious circumstances. So I am worried for the success rate going forward. Didn't do particularly well at Blackpool at this level. I think Tom Ince was involved at the club then as well, wasn't he? So it's a little bit of deja vu on that front. I remember the hoo-ha back then. But he's got a big 2 games to start. We mentioned it off camera just before. Birmingham at home, Blackpool away, Millwall at home. They are 3 games that they have to target points from. And he's starting on Tuesday night. I don't know which way this is going to go. You'll find out in the predictions later, but I'm not convinced, mate. I'm not convinced.
To be honest, this next 6 games, I don't know how many games he's going to get, but these next 6 games are all tough games. Yeah. All tough games. It's not like they're playing a team that's near the bottom. They're playing teams that are obviously a lot higher, mid-table to promotion chasing. So how do you see Paul Ince doing? Not obviously, you will do a prediction on Reading Birmingham in the prediction show, but how do you see it coming after the next few games?
I genuinely, the way it's worded makes you think, unless he does something spectacular, he's probably only going to be in charge for the next week or 2. I wonder if they're looking, I mentioned this to you just before we came on, I wonder if he's looking at getting him through the next 6 games. Then you've got the 2-week international break, and then they're back away to Barnsley. They've got Cardiff in that spell, Hull and Swansea before the end of the season too. I wonder if that's what they're looking for, because realistically, the 3 games before the international break are sides that are in or battling for the top 6, and you wouldn't expect them to get results in those. So I'm just so baffled that I genuinely don't know. It's the first time we've looked at a prediction show, and I can't see what's going to happen moving forward. I don't think he's going to be in charge at most more than those 6 games, unless he wins them all. But the way the statement was worded would suggest they're going out and looking for another manager. He's still not one of the top 2 favourites for the job with the bookmakers, which would suggest that that's not going to happen. I worry for them, Craig. I genuinely think, and I'll say it here now, unless someone different comes in quite quickly and it's the right appointment, I think Derby will overtake them, and I think they're at very big risk of relegation. They need their players to deliver. They need Paul Ince to have a massive impact, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. I think it was the right decision at the wrong time to get rid of Paunovic.
You saying Derby will survive? You think Reading will go down and replace Derby? Who will, if Paul Ince is interim, who will be permanent?
It's a really difficult question, Craig. My opinion is they have to try and get someone quite quickly. When we were looking last week before this all happened, the favourites for the job at the time, you're talking about people like Gary Monk and Aitor Karanka, which doesn't convince me, and I don't think will happen. I said it with the Barnsley job, and I think I'm being proven right now. I know a lot of people will be put off by his last job, but I think Mick McCarthy could be a solution in the short term. If you're looking a bit longer term, I don't know, because the only other people, bar those 2 favourites that are popping up, are all the old names, your Neil Warnocks, your Alan Pardew's, your Mark Hugheses. And I don't know that's what Reading need at the moment. I would go to League One and look for one of the strongest managers and give them time to build. I would try everything in my power to get someone like Paul Warne or Gareth Ainsworth, who have worked with small budgets, who have delivered above the odds for some time. I guess Paul Warne of the 2 probably plays the more easy football on the eye, which might be suitable for Reading fans, but Gareth Ainsworth probably suits the squad. They've got a bit better. They would be my picks. They look nowhere near like they're going to get it. The biggest hope Reading can have and their fans is that Ince and Gilkes start well, and then they get the job to the end of the season, because at the moment they just need to survive. And that's why the timing's off for me. I can't look and think that's the perfect fit for this job. I can't think of a manager that's there. And certainly of the ones near the top of the odds, I don't see any that are going to save the day. So unless they go for a short-term Warnock or McCarthy, unless Gary Monk and Aitor Karanka have changed massively, because the recent interviews from players about them haven't been particularly endearing, I worry. I'd love to know who you think the next manager is going to be, because I'm more stumped than I've ever been for a manager special, I think. And we've done quite a lot of them over here.
We've done far too many for my liking. I don't know either, because who would want to go in there? I don't think it'd be an English manager that will want to go there. Because Paunovic, no one expected Paunovic to take over to start with. To do the Barnsley route, picking someone completely random, or Carl Robinson, probably another shout as a League One manager. I generally don't know. This is probably the first one we've gone, yeah, he's going to, I think he should be manager. I think he'd be the right candidate for the job. I am absolutely stumped as you are of who should be a permanent Reading manager and who will want to come into a mess.
It's a great point, honestly, Craig, because I think all the other championship specials we've had this season, bar maybe one or two like Barnsley right at the bottom, there's been those little links with like even a John Terry or a Frank Lampard. Would they step down and go and take their next managerial step here? Whereas this one, you just feel that they're sort of classed out of the top lot because of the mess off the pitch, not the size of the club. You know, they've been a Premier League side the last 15 years, but off the pitch, you just don't feel that anyone who's probably earlier in their career, who's worked at a similar or higher level, would be willing to take the risk, because it is 3 from 4 at the bottom there. Derby have got massive momentum with them, and it's a huge hit on your reputation moving forward if you come into Reading and get relegated, even though there's a 3 in 4 chance you will.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I think Paul Ince takes this to the end of the season. It depends on money-wise where they are going to be if they're in League One or the Championship, because obviously they'll get a lot more money just from TV rights for the Championship than obviously they would in League One. So, yeah, I think Paul Ince to the end of the season. I don't see Paul Ince doing well. I've never seen Paul Ince as a good manager or a good coach.
Look, let's be fair, against...
It was a miracle at Macclesfield.
Yeah.
Let's give it. It was a miracle at Macclesfield.
Yeah, he did well with MK the first.
Did okay with MK, but other than that, his ego and his arrogance, because he was the governor, rubbish. When he went to Blackburn and struggled at Blackburn, and his stubbornness to try and be like a League Two coach for a Premier League side never worked, and he never recovered. And why do you think why hasn't he been hired in the last 6-7 years?
You mentioned a really good point, Craig, actually, which is it's a similar situation. We've mentioned this before with a couple of others. They had this sort of media perception of being very brash, being above their players. I don't know if that will have an impact, but like you, I just can't see it ending well. And I'm very suspicious about how he's got into that job. I don't think Tom Ince is involved, but I think Reading's board have looked, as you said, and thought, oh, this is a really good option because he's here and looking anyway.
Yeah, he's probably watched a few games and I could do better. Which I don't think he will. But that is our thoughts on Reading sacking Veljko Paunovic and Paul Ince in interim charge. Let us know in the comments section what you think will happen to Reading. How do you think Paul Ince will do? And where do you see Reading happening in the next few years? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football 3. And we'll see you next time.